Hello, guys. Welcome back to Heal to Feel.
Long time no see.
Long time no see. So today we have the most incredible guest who I've been waiting for since the day we dropped this. And this queen is Anita Moorjani. So welcome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I feel so honored and touched. And yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Of course, we're so excited. So basically, you guys are going to hear the most incredible story today. But where it started was I used to follow this philosopher, our good friend, your good friend, Dr. Wayne Dyer, that I'm sure a lot of people have heard of.
Yes.
And this was in 2012. I'd just gotten married, and I said to my husband, who actually introduced me to Wayne Dyer, because when his mom got sick with cancer, she gave him these books and said, I want you to remain positive. So he gave it to me. I read the book in one setting. I was like, I got to go listen to this guy speak. I go to speak. He's speaking in front of how many people was that main auditorium?
Like 3,000 in the audience and even more on live stream.
Yeah. So it was this Hay House production of all these self-help authors. And he does this whole opening speech. And then he says, I have a special guest for you guys. And she has never spoken in front of anyone before. And he flew her out and she walked out. And that was Anita in 2012. She had never spoken to a live audience, right?
That's right. That was my first experience ever in my life.
Yeah. So he brings you out and you tell the most fascinating, life-changing story. And we'll get into that. But basically, for some reason, I wrote down every word you said. And I was like, this is when my dream of being a director and creating films. I was like, I'm going to make her film. And I just wrote down every single word. And since then, I have recommended your book to so many people. When I was a hypnotherapist, I recommended it to every single client. And it really, really changed people's lives. And Anita in, when was it? 2002.
Yes.
Anita is somebody that I think we can all relate to, that, is Indian, but was living in Hong Kong. So I think a lot of you guys out there have been immigrants or different cultures that have even come to the US, and you kind of have these conflicting views thrown at you constantly, don't know which way to go.
Clashing cultures and
Yes.
being treated differently because you're.
Yeah, as MJ
Yes.
would know, being Persian and coming to the US.
I resonated with your description about being surrounded with blonde hair, blue eyes, and being dark hair and dark skin and being treated differently. So a lot of my childhood that resonated among many other things. I
Yeah.
just wanted to say it.
Yeah.
It aroused and evoked a lot of intense emotion. I did the audiobook and it was like you really it really jarred me in a good way, because
Yeah.
you can't say touched me. It was way more intense, and I definitely haven't gotten that out of any book that I've read, honestly.
Yeah. And this book is called Dying to Be Me. It was a bestseller, 40 languages.
Yes.
How many countries?
40. It's about 45 languages.
45 languages. It's the most incredible book. And we're going to get into it now. But I learned so much from this book, and it basically will get into what it's going to touch on. But it's about a near-death experience that Anita had. But why I was drawn to this book is a lot of these NDEs you've heard, I saw the light and I came back. Anita saw the light, but she saw so much more and had so many messages to bring to us. So when you were living in Hong Kong, you were getting so many conflicting views, right?
Yes.
You're this little girl, you're going to this British school, you're going home, and your religion was Hinduism at home?
Hinduism. My parents were Hindu.
Our parents were Hindu. Now she's going to a British school in Hong Kong, and these kids are saying, well, if you don't go to Sunday school, bad things are going to happen. And so this poor little girl was getting so many conflicting views of which way to go, correct?
Yes, exactly.
And basically that was the start of stripping of who you were allowed to be to the world.
Yes.
And as Anita grew older in this culture, eventually, and I'll let you speak a lot about this, but the main gist of the story is Anita comes down with lymphoma. And she tried different treatments and she tried to get into what was causing it. tried the Eastern, the Western. Long story short, she gets to her deathbed and she has tumors like golf balls all over her body. They'd say, tell everybody, say your goodbyes. This is it. All her organs shut down. You were 80 something pounds. That was the end. The miracle happens. You go in a coma for 30 hours. We're going to speak all about it. You come back and are healed. 70% of the tumors shrunk within 4 days and then are healed within a couple weeks. Gone. Tumors gone. Obviously hard to explain, but there is so much more behind it. And we're going to get into the story with Anita, but that is the main gist of the
Yeah.
story.
I mean, when I say that the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up, it's so inspiring. Your story, it's chilling. I mean, it's so intense. And I just wanted to say that it's, there's a lot of people like Kimberly and I were talking, our producer, she was like, you have to ask the questions from people that I'm an audience person who isn't knowledgeable about this world at all. So I know that you're such a good storyteller because of the audiobook. And yeah, it's just really
So
intense.
first, I want you to explain to the audience what was going through your mind when you get the diagnosis, because so much fear, as you say, is built around the word cancer. When we hear cancer, there's some societies that cancer is just a message. It's like, okay, I got to
That was what she
change.
said. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what she said in the book. You said
Yeah.
that word means fear.
Yes,
It's fear-based, right?
It's a fear-based word,
Yeah.
and that's actually more damaging. Like what we believe about cancer is more damaging than what cancer actually is.
Wow, that's incredible. So what goes through? So now you're living your life, we might add that Anita's best friend had cancer.
Yes. And my best friend and my brother-in-law were both going through cancer, and I wasn't diagnosed yet. But remember, I was a people pleaser. I was someone who grew up in a culture where women were always subservient to men. It was a culture um, that preferred men over women. And so there was so much gender disparity, and women were expected to be of service to the men. Our worth was measured by how valuable we were to the men in our community. So the more subservient you are to the men and the more you pleased men, the more you're rewarded. So I was a people pleaser. I was groomed to be a people pleaser. My parents had groomed me for an arranged marriage. And so you're told things like, don't be too smart, don't be too loud, you can't have a career, you can't be career oriented because that makes you less desirable for marriage. The more educated you are, the less desirable you are for marriage. The less obedient and compliant you'll be, the more you educate yourself. So women were discouraged from doing things like that. And that's the culture I grew up in.
Which exists a lot around the world still to
It
this
does.
day.
It's
Yes.
very universal in so
Yeah.
many cultures, for sure.
It
Yeah.
shocks me that I still hear from people that it still exists. So that's the culture I grew up in.
Yeah.
At the same time, as you mentioned, I went to a British school where the British kids didn't have to deal with that. They were talking about their careers and what college they were going to, and I couldn't talk about that. I couldn't even look into what my future was going to be because I was told my future would be dependent on the man. So basically, you live with your parents until you get married, and then you live with your husband and possibly his entire family, his parents, and if he has unmarried siblings, they're there too.
How present are the in-laws under the same roof when you get married?
Yes,
Under the
same
Yeah.
home, the same home. Because I had a marriage arranged for me and I got engaged and I was expected to live with and cook and clean for his parents as well as him.
So how much do you lose your own connection? How far geographically could you be taken away from your own parents?
Other side of the world. I was being
crazy.
taken away to the other side of the world.
Ugh, I hate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And your dad, Anita had and this is something that you'll talk about when you experience the NDE, but, it wasn't easy with her dad because he was, again, confined in this body in the physical form of, I got to go with my tradition and my cultures and what I've been taught and groomed. So
Yes.
now he's putting in that on you and you want to break that cycle. So that's got to have created friction.
Yes, because to my dad, like if I fought against an arranged marriage and because you're not even allowed to date because every man you're introduced to is a prospective husband. Um, so you're not even allowed to date freely. I couldn't date men that were not of my culture. So because I wanted to do those things, I was seen as a rebel. Yet it's so normal for young women to want those things. So what was normal for my peers was considered rebellious or considered loose, and I was a bad girl. And so I was so envious of my peers, but was always trying to win my dad's approval, which I never did. I never won his approval. I always felt that I just didn't meet his approval. I was never good enough for him. I even sensed that he probably wished that I was born a boy. I was a disappointment just because I was a girl and I was too westernized. And so I did eventually agree to an arranged marriage, and but I was engaged to him for about 8 months, and during that time, um, I had not gone for higher education before because I was discouraged. I wanted to work. I wanted my freedom. So I thought, let me get engaged to a guy who seems very reasonable and very nice. And then,
Smart.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then maybe I'll have more freedom than my parents gave me. But that wasn't the case. When I got engaged, it turned out they said they didn't want me to work. They didn't want me to go back to school. And I would have to be a stay-at-home housewife, cooking, cleaning, taking care of him and his mom. And they were even dictating what kind of clothes I need to wear and that I would need to go to
That
the
still
temple.
happens. All
Yeah.
of the girls that got married right after high school to
Yeah,
good,
you were saying that.
yeah, that still happens.
It's
Absolutely.
amazing. It still
Yeah, it's
happens.
still like in the
Still
Persian
happens.
culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 It's
Right here.
Yeah, it's incredible. And his parents said, at least his mom said, that she wanted me to go to the temple twice a week, and she wanted me to bring more Indian clothes when I get married, because I was wearing mostly Western clothes, but she wanted me to dress more Indian. And I said, and because I needed to go to the temple twice a week, so I said, "Oh, my fiance, does he go to the temple twice a week?" And she goes,
No.
"No, he doesn't go."
Of
So I
course.
asked him, like, "What will you be doing if I go to the temple?" He goes, "I'll be going out to have drinks with my friends."
Wow,
Oh
must
my
be
goodness.
nice. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that
And
makes me.
then,
Oh.
and I even said to him that, your mom wants me to wear Indian clothes every day, like around the house. That's not very practical if I'm supposed to do the housework and buy the groceries. You can't move around freely in Indian clothes. And he said, "No, I think you should listen to my mom." And I said, but it really isn't practical. And he said, "I don't care what's practical. I just want you to do what I say." He
Wow.
literally said that.
So at this point, are you
Awesome.
now like just spiraling? You are now feeling suffocated, like, oh my God, this is going to be the rest of my life, but I don't want to disappoint my dad. So what's going through your head? Like,
So I was spiraling. I
yeah.
was in so much fear for the upcoming marriage because I thought, this is it. My wings are clipped. I can't do anything. And they lived on the other side of the world, halfway across the world from me and my family and my friends.
Where did they live?
So actually, I was living in Hong Kong, and believe it or not, they were living in the UK, but they were very traditional.
Wow.
Very.
Wow.
Yeah. So my parents thought that, because they live in the UK, they'll be very, I guess, open, but it wasn't
It
the
wasn't.
case. Just like over here in the United States, you have
Right.
Indian people,
Right.
Persian people who still really hold on to their culture.
So now walk us through what happens 2 days before the wedding.
I couldn't go through with it. I was so scared.
So everybody's in town. Is this in Hong Kong or in
So
UK?
we were going to have the wedding in India, like a halfway point between the two places. And it became a central point where all our relatives could fly in, and friends and relatives. And, all the venues were booked. And in India, you can really have a big Indian venue, literally, with the music, the bands, the animals,
the elephants.
We all saw
the elephants,
Priyanka
the
Chopra's
horses.
wedding
Priyanka
with
Chopra, all the celebrities
with the
were,
Jonas,
and
Nick
all the
Jonas.
celebrities were just like some huge
It was
Indian
a week.
wedding.
It was at least a week.
Yes, this
Maybe
was
even-
going to be a week at
Right.
least,
It
and you
looked
can have
really
the
fun.
fireworks, and it's great fun when you
When you're
actually
happy
do
to
it, when you're
be-
happy, when you want to.
So all the family's already flown in.
Oh, everybody's flown in. Everything is booked. The venue's booked. The catering, like the whole thing. Everyone's taken that time off.
Unbelievable.
My family are there, like everybody. But what happened is, the short story is, I ran away 2 days before the wedding.
Wow.
But
So good.
in actuality, what happened is that 2 days before the wedding, I went to my mom and I cried and cried
And she
told
was
her.
more understanding, right?
She was very understanding. And she said, her first thing was, why didn't you tell me earlier? I would have helped you through this.
Aw.
She felt so bad that I was holding on to this, and went through 8 months of this. She said, you've gone through 8 months. Why are you only telling me
Aw.
now? I said, because I was scared, because all our relatives, aunts and other relatives, kept saying to me, oh, this is normal. This is normal. You'll sort it out after your marriage, after you're married.
Because it was normal.
It
was
was
normal
normal
to
to them.
And might we add, Anita's dad and mom came from very different backgrounds.
Yes, they did.
Very, very different backgrounds.
Can you describe a little bit of how, because she ended up being the one that was more supportive and compassionate and made you feel safe, whereas traditionally our dads the men are supposed to make us feel safe.
So my dad was very strict and came from a more conservative family. My mom was more modern, and but in her time, so we're thinking, so my mom would be 99 today if she was still alive. So you're going way back. At her time, her parents were trying to arrange a marriage for her from the age of 16. And she didn't like it at all. She didn't like how it made her feel. And internally, she made a vow to herself that if she has a daughter, she's not going to do that to her daughter. Finally, she didn't get married at 16, 17. And then you had the partition and they had to move countries. And she was 26 and still single, but people in the community, Indian community, were making her feel like an old spinster, that she couldn't afford to be choosy because she was so old now. She even had to lie about her age and had her age changed on her passport, reduced by 3 years, just to get more prospects.
Suitors.
Yeah, get more suitors.
Wow.
And so finally she gave in, and my dad he is very polished. He's a good-looking, tall man, and spoke English, which is what's considered educated back then. And so he looked good on paper, but he was very stubborn, stern, and very old-fashioned, and very much about reputation. So so when my dad saw my mom, he liked her right away. But for my mom, my dad wasn't her first choice because she felt he was too conservative.
That's interesting.
So it was interesting. So my mom put up with living with my dad and his family and being, yes, basically.
So basically now she's
She
getting a chance
yes.
To redo.
what
Yeah.
she didn't get to do for her daughter, which is probably why you picked her in the first place.
Yes.
And so now you speak with your mom. She said, why didn't you tell me? And she gives you permission.
Yes, she says, she said to me that you go and stay somewhere where they won't find you because they're going to be so mad when we tell them. She says,
my
she's saying
God.
about my in-laws.
That's a little
Yeah,
frightening.
she
Where
says-
did you
It's
go?
like the cops are after you.
Yeah.
You're a fugitive.
Oh, they did. They stalked me and everything. Yes. So she said, they're not going to be happy, but I'm going to help you through this. And I said, but Mom, everybody in the community, they're all going to be mad at me, not just the family I'm marrying into, but everybody who's flown here. And she said, don't worry, I'll handle them all.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So
Okay. So now
I
you
stayed
run
with a friend.
away.
Yes.
The whole community knows now. And now there's almost like a dark cloud over you, right? You've got, what is that? Like the scarlet letter? You know,
Yes.
like you
Hester
are
friend.
like excommunicated. Nobody marry her. So what did you do after when you get back?
So I had to fly back to Hong Kong. And so everybody in the Indian community heard about what I had done. And I was told that nobody is going to marry me after that. And my parents were told that they had spoilt me and that my mother was wrong in protecting me, that she should have just slapped me and made me go to the temple, and they could have sorted it out after they were married. And so, so my parents were also ostracized.
And
for
what
that.
happened with the relationship between you and your father after that?
I was feeling terrible for what I'd done, but because my mother was constantly talking to him and saying, look, this is better. I'm protecting her because this is better than her being abused after the marriage or her running away after the marriage and coming back home. So he finally had to agree to that. So he softened. He did relent, but I'm sure he wasn't happy with taking the brunt of what was happening in our community, because he's a very proud man and very strict. And he's very much about the image that you portray in public.
So now after this, are you like, I'm going to go work, I'm going to find my independence?
Yes. So then I actually said to my parents that, that I don't want to marry an Indian man. So anyway, no Indian man's going to marry me after this, but I don't want to marry an Indian man because I don't like this whole thing about our culture. I don't want to be treated as someone who's inferior to men. I'm going to find someone who I fall in love with and who loves me for who I am. And I said, I'm going to go to work. I've never been able to work. And so I did. They didn't stop me because they didn't have anything else to offer me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did. I actually did start to go to work, and I was so happy going to work and meeting other people, and I started dating people. But as I did that, within the Indian community, my name got worse and worse and worse, because here was this independent girl. I was a girl to them, girl who's dating other men that are not from our community, and they would see me come roll up with a man dropping me off in his car, and they would see me in our neighborhood. And so I had to, if I was dating a man, I really had to hide and be very, very careful. And and I was
Still have to do that now if you want to marry someone good. And if you have any previous boyfriend, it's considered like a big tarnish. Or if you have any, that's it. Like it's just one, and virgin, and you show the sheets to the in-laws. And
I was even asked whether I was a virgin. And
so crazy.
and then
it's like
I
they
said,
own you.
and I actually said to my fiance, I said, why do you ask that? Before I answered, I said, why do you ask that? Are you? And he said, he actually
for
said,
you.
he said, I'm a guy. It doesn't matter if I am or I'm not. And then I said, oh, wow. I said, I thought you would be more progressive than that. But as it happens, I am. And he goes, now that you've said what you said, I don't believe you are.
wow, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
I've heard that myself
God.
personally.
That is horrendous. Okay,
Yeah.
so then
That's really awful.
it's
by the way.
very cute, but Anita goes with her friend as a wing woman to a restaurant bar.
Yeah, a bar.
And then the lovely Danny, who's sitting in the audience, who is Anita's current husband, was there.
Yes.
And you were going as a wing woman. He was meeting your friend for the first time, right?
Yes.
And then Danny ended up liking Anita, and they ended up making this incredible connection. And so Danny's Indian.
Yes.
But tell us what was different about the lovely Danny.
So Danny's parents had been trying to set him up with an arranged marriage, and he refused. He said, I'm not going to have an arranged marriage. I may not even marry an Indian woman. I don't like all our traditions. And he said, I'm not going to get your approval one way or another who I marry. It's my choice. And then there was me also, not wanting to marry an Indian man. But here's the other piece. Danny also grew up in Hong Kong, same as me. Also Hindu parents, same as me. Also went to a British school. So being from Hong Kong, we both spoke Cantonese. Being from Indian parents, we both spoke the same dialect, Indian dialect. And we both from British schools spoke fluent English. And we both rebelled against Indian arranged marriages. So we just clicked. We literally, we shared so much commonality that it was just incredible. Now, in the community, and this is just a funny story. So he started dating me, and and we got closer and closer. And I knew he was eventually going to ask me to marry him. You can just sense it. You're getting closer to that. Now, within the community, what had spread, the rumors that had spread about me was that I was spoilt and I ran away from the marriage because I didn't want to do housework and take care of the family. And so I had this reputation that I don't do housework and I'm terrible at housework. So it was really silly that it was boiled down to just that. But so I was curious as Danny was dating me whether he knew about my past of having run away from a marriage, because I started to wonder that maybe his parents won't approve of me because they're Indian. So I said to Danny, I just want to ask you, do you know about my past and my history? And he goes, yeah, but you don't have to worry because I can cook, I can clean, I can buy.
That's great.
That's why we love him.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
And then when he did tell his parents that he wanted to marry me, his parents said, that's the girl that ran away from her marriage. And they said, she's got a mind of her own. And he said, yeah, that's why I love her.
Oh,
That's wonderful.
I love that.
That's really,
I love that. Love
thank
that.
God.
So now, did your dad approve of
And
Danny?
by the way, I want to say that you were probably a hero in the minds of many women in the community that you were actually a role model for them. You
100%.
inspired so many people that there was no one else. So maybe you had to take one, for the reputation, but what a positive impact you had on other people that felt that way.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that you said that, because when I was in that NDE place where I thought that I would be judged for having done what I'd done and bringing so much shame to my family and his family and everybody, what I saw from that NDE place was this different perspective that in actuality I had inspired other women from my
Oh,
culture.
yeah.
So
Look
it's
at
incredible that you
Yeah.
said that.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And I can see why, because whenever you do something where you stray from the expectation and the cultural norm, then you know that you're not alone. There are other women that have the same, just like your mom, just like so many generations before
Breaking
us.
the cycle.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did your dad approve of Danny?
He did, actually. Danny was very good to my dad, and he approved.
Good.
Unfortunately, my dad passed away before our wedding.
Yeah, you said like 2 months before the wedding, right?
Yeah, and then we postponed the wedding because he had passed.
And
so-
how was your relationship when he passed? And that's a big deal because you'll see Anita sees her father in her near-death experience.
So when he passed, my relationship with him was good, but I had never been close to him. I'd never really felt his love, but it wasn't turbulent at the time that he passed because I was so happy. I was engaged, and we were preparing to get married. And my mom was getting involved in everything and helping me prepare the wedding. So everything was peaceful with my dad,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't, I won't say it was 100% good, because my dad is very, very traditional, and he's very demanding from my mom. Like he's not the type of person to say, "Oh, it's Anita's time. She's getting married, so she needs my mom more than he needs his wife." He wouldn't say that. He would still make the same demands on my mom as if she was there to serve him and be at his beck and call.
Bound by his culture and traditions.
Yes, and
So now you guys get married, and your best friend gets cancer.
yes.
And I remember reading that you, again, still had kind of that people pleaser, always want everybody to be happy, which a lot of us can relate. But when she's in the hospital, you almost feel a sense of guilt that you're not the one sick, correct?
Yes, I couldn't go and have fun while she was in hospital. And we shared the same friends. And so I felt awful being out with those same friends while she couldn't go out. And she was progressively getting worse and worse. So I was always available to her. I was at her beck and call. I was at the hospital with her. Now, she had small children. I would help drive her kids to the doctor or to their school activities, just whatever I could do. And I noticed that I started neglecting myself and I started to feel like I was neglecting my life, my relationship. And just because I felt so obligated to be around her and I felt so bad, I couldn't see her just wasting away. And then one day, I just felt a lump on my neck. But during that time, I also had this incredible fear of cancer because I thought if my best friend can get it, she was young and fit and lively. We both were. If she can get it, then I can as well. Then I felt this lump on the side of my neck. And I went to the doctor, and at first they thought, oh, maybe it's just you've just got an infection. They gave me antibiotics. It didn't go down. Then they did a biopsy. And they said it was lymphoma, and then they did the scans, and at that time they said it's stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And my first reaction, of course, there was fear, but it was very quickly followed by, now I have a reason to take care of myself.
Secondary gain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interior is a first of its kind multifunctional juice developed by scientists with over 30 years of research in chronic inflammation, metabolic health, and functional food tech. Each bottle contains a proprietary bioactive complex of superfoods, antioxidants, and phytonutrients that support gut health, metabolism, and immunity, all while tasting like something you'd actually want to drink every day. Whether you're feeling off, stressed, or just want to feel better, make Interior your new daily ritual and initiate a positive chain reaction in your body. Interior is available exclusively online at drinkinterior.com. And for a 20% discount, use code LIAT20. That's drinkinterior.com. Your cells will thank you.
That was
Wow.
very clear for me.
There's a lot of people that I have a friend even, and I was just telling her because she gets migraines, and I was telling her like, and it just won't go away. It's been a couple years, and I'm like, you seem to do everything for everyone and want to please everyone, but you don't have an excuse to say, I want to rest. But if you have a migraine, all of a sudden you have an excuse to kind of sit out or lay in bed, right? And so I said, talk to your headaches and say, I got this now. Like, I will stick up for myself. But
Yeah.
it's a very interesting, because I think a lot of people can create that, to be able to just stick up for yourself.
Yes, that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you get this fear, you get this relief. So now they obviously tell you you need to do treatment,
Yeah.
correct? And then what goes through your head?
So at first, I didn't want to do any treatment because I was watching my friend. She was having the best Western treatment that money can buy. She was going to the top cancer hospitals. But all I was seeing was her deteriorate. She had surgery, then she had chemo, then she had radiation, then she had more chemo, and it wasn't improving. And every time she had treatment, to me, it looked like she was deteriorating further. So, through my eyes, and again, I say this with caution, I don't
Yeah.
want to put off anyone who's going through treatment. It's great if it's working for you, please keep doing it. It's unique for each person. But through my eyes, it looked like the treatment was killing her faster than the
Well, I mean, it's
disease.
poisonous,
Yes.
So for me personally, the treatment scares me more than the actual disease,
Yes.
or illness. But yeah, okay. So then, do you do the chemo? You do a little bit of it, and then you started exploring other options too, correct?
So I held off on starting the chemo. I did the chemo towards the end when I had no other option. But what happened is that I started by doing Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. And as I was doing these things, I was noticing that the community I was in very much believe in Western medicine, in the chemo and the radiation, and they are very skeptical about all these other complementary methods that I wanted to explore. And so people were saying, you've got to do what the oncologist says. You've got to do the chemo and the radiation, and you can do these as complementary alongside of them, but don't do these as the main thing. You're crazy. You're killing yourself. So I found that I was really struggling because the people who were doing the complementary medicine, the practitioners who were offering it, were saying the chemo is poisonous, the radiation is poisonous. If people actually only did this, they can heal. They can heal better. Their body will be better, because we're always helping people who come to us as a last resort because the chemo and all didn't work and we have a lot of success, but you'd be better if you didn't do that at all. So I was torn between the two sides. And in that confusion, in that conflict of the people closest to me, except for my immediate family, but I mean the general circle of people that I was in, they would keep saying to me, "You really have to go the oncology route." So what I ended up doing, though, is that I was so afraid of the chemo that, because I was watching my friend while this is happening, and I flew to India to do Ayurveda in a more closed environment where I wouldn't have the conflicting views, so that I would be away from everybody in Hong Kong who was detracting me.
And trying to people please and being fearful and all these emotions that can help spread the cancer.
Yes. So the stress that I went through was actually contributing. It contributes to inflammation, which contributes to the spread of the disease. And that's what was happening with me, just by staying there and dealing with these conflicting views and people telling me that, and people thinking they're being very well-meaning and say, I really just need to tell you this, that you must do the chemo for blah, blah, whatever reasons they had. And me being a people pleaser, I didn't want to argue with them. So when I went to India for 6 months, I had a lot of success because I was following one protocol. And I was following the diet, and I was doing all the meditation, the yoga, and I was following teachers who were telling me that let's remove the fear from the word cancer. Let's even remove the word cancer.
And by the way, you talk a lot about this in your talks, but we are so focused on that word cancer. And in our society, when you hear that, cancer is so much fear. And you were saying we shouldn't even use that word anymore. It shouldn't be Cancer Awareness Month, right? It should be
Yes.
Health Awareness Month.
Exactly. I don't support things like Cancer Awareness Month, Breast Cancer Awareness. I don't think we should be focused and aware of cancer. I think we're over aware of cancer. We're not aware enough of what it means to be well and healthy. What does it take? What do we do to be healthy? I think if we had more focus on wellness awareness, health awareness, we would have much more health than we currently do. And we would have less cancer because we'd remove the focus from cancer.
And unless people thought, oh, cancer, like in some societies, again, oh, this is just a message, it's okay, but instead it's, oh my God, the minute you hear the word cancer, it's, I'm going to die. There's this fear that you're going to die. And that alone can help spread it.
And the treatment itself is also designed for something that you are going to die from. But if you yourself knew that, oh, this is my body, it's expressing something, you would treat it very differently.
So now you fly back
Yes, after
And now you're
6 months.
back to the people.
And so I was so much better. The lymph nodes, they started shrinking, and I was like so much better and healthier and stronger. And I'm back home, and so people are calling and saying, "How are you doing? How is it? How?" And I said, "I'm great. I'm great. I'm doing really well." And then it all starts again. The people are saying, "So, what did you do?" And when I tell them, they're like, "Oh, that's not real. That doesn't work. You should do the real stuff. At least go see your doctor. Go get the scans done. Go do this." And they're all on me again for that. And I keep trying to put it off, and then the fear comes back. It starts coming back because I'm in that environment. I call it a marinade. When I talk to people, I say, check your marinade, because that really affects how you feel, who you are, how your life turns out. It's your marinade. So that marinade I was in was so unhealthy for me. And so as I felt it started to come back, and then, of course, my best friend dies, and I'm like, oh my God. And she had all the best cancer treatment that money can buy, and everybody's telling me to go for the same treatment. It didn't make sense to me. How can they say that doesn't work and you have to do this when I'm watching her die?
How did you feel the first time that you started to hear them say that? Did you feel angry?
I felt angry. I felt angry, frustrated. Very frustrated. I became a recluse. I wouldn't see anyone for that reason. I told Danny that if people phone me, just screen my calls, tell them I'm not available. We used to have house phones back then.
Landlines.
Landlines, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so
And Danny
yeah.
was supportive of all
Very.
your decisions. We love Danny again.
Oh, he was so supportive, so supportive. He didn't
Yeah.
leave my side.
Yeah.
He saw how it worked for me.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
he would try to be the one to say, keep going.
And now against you're going against
I have
your
another
grain
question
again.
about articulating, confronting, questioning, and letting the people around you know how displeased you are, and with the logic of that unfortunate loss. Did you ever feel in those moments that you wanted to tell them to, like, look at what just happened to our best friend, and how are you, are you confronting this with people other than the times that you're sending them to voicemail, so to speak?
So, it's funny how people are, because looking back, it seems like this doesn't make a lot of sense, but people are so, at least certainly in that time, this is going back to 2005, 2006, the belief in the medical system, especially at that time, was so entrenched and ingrained in people.
Still is.
It still is, right? So to them, what I was saying and what I was doing, what I was actually doing with with my healthcare practitioners, the naturopaths, it was as if I was doing nothing.
Yeah, because you're
And
not with a real doctor.
they
with a
weren't
man in a
real,
white coat.
yes. They didn't consider those real doctors. And
Yeah.
so even when I said, but look, at what's happened to Sony, and they were like, yes, that hers was really aggressive, but they said something like, you don't want to die. You don't want to end your life. I don't want you to die. I care about you. That's why I want you to go to see the oncologist. They would literally say that, is because I care about you. I don't want to lose you. But in my head, it's like, if I go and see them, I will die.
Yeah. And that was your gut. So you did go see them.
Yes.
Right? And you did get worse.
Yes. So I continued to get worse. And then I was told that that even if I had chemo by that point, I was told that even if I had chemo, it would kill me. The chemo, my body was
You're
so
too
weak that it would kill me. So the doctors knew that I was going to die anyway. Yeah.
And you still did it.
And so I still did it. And I got worse, and my organs shut down, and then I went into a coma.
So now we're on the day. It's 2006?
2006.
2006. Okay, so there's a couple weird synchronicities, but Trevor, my husband's late brother, was born on March 16th, and Anita's born on March 16th. And then the day she died, which we say kind of she was reborn, is my daughter's birthday.
Isn't that interesting?
February 2nd,
Yeah.
2006.
Wow.
So now Anita has tumors all over her body, size of golf balls, right? Like
Yes.
everywhere.
All over my lymphatic system.
All over.
Yeah.
Your skin's open with toxins
Yes,
and
weeping.
lesions.
My lungs are filled with fluid, and I can't even lie down or I choke on my own fluid.
So they're basically rushing Anita to the hospital saying to everyone, say your goodbyes.
Yes.
Are you speaking at this point?
No, I was like in a kind of in and out of a coma, but then I went into a coma completely.
Okay. Now you're going to walk. So for everybody at home, I mean, I've been reading this stuff forever. So for me, I'm like, oh, this is validation. But somebody like, our producer, Kimberly, who I gave your book, she'll tell you about what happened. But this is all kind of, it can be new to a lot of people. So I want you to really walk us through of what it feels like to be in that situation and show them how consciousness is still very much alive.
Okay. So when I'm rushed to the hospital, the doctors say that, so I'm in a coma now, and the doctors say that my organs are shut down.
And you can hear them.
And I can hear them.
Okay.
So they tell my family that right away because my body is starting to swell up. And they said her kidneys have already stopped functioning. Her organs are shutting down. She's not going to come out of the coma. And this is it. These are her final hours. And my lungs, my breathing is very labored because, and I am already on an oxygen machine, by the way. I was already on one for 6 weeks prior to even going into the coma because my lungs were filled with fluid. So slowly my lungs are failing me. My kidneys have already failed me.
Are you in pain? Are you feeling this? Are you scared?
I was before I went in the coma.
Okay.
I was in so much pain and so much fear. And a lot of discomfort. The discomfort mainly because I feel like I'm drowning all the time. Because if I lay flat, felt like I was choking on my own fluid. And my body is so weak that I can't walk. And even if I sit up, my neck doesn't have the strength to hold my head up. My head is hanging down like this. So sitting up is uncomfortable. Lying down is uncomfortable because then I choke. I can't walk because my muscles have completely wasted away.
And now when you're starting to slip away, do you feel like, okay, this is my time, fine, like I'm
Yes.
going? Do you almost want to go because you just want a sense of relief?
Yes, I just want to be relieved from all this. I just wanted a release. And as I went into the coma, I felt good. The relief feels good. It's like, it just feels like, almost like when you're not feeling well and then you just go to sleep. And when you're sleeping and you're dreaming, you feel good in your dreams. But this was not like a dream. This was incredible. So I started to become aware that I still exist beyond my body. But the first thing I noticed is that I felt really good. The pain was gone. The fear was gone. I didn't quite understand what was happening, but the biggest thing for me was that the fear, the pain, the discomfort was all gone. And I felt really light and I felt free. And then I started to become aware that, I'm not attached or I'm not in my body anymore.
So you could see your body.
Yes, slowly I started to be able to see my body. It's like the expansion of my soul, if you will, was happening slowly. And I became aware of my family that were around my physical body. I could hear everything they were saying and I could see everything, but I wasn't looking at it with physical eyes. It's an awareness. It was like a 360-degree awareness.
And you could hear what the doctors were saying on other floors, which she
Yes.
later confirmed when
Yes.
she came back in her body.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I could see everything.
And you could see your brother.
I could see my brother who was rushing to get on a plane because he was in a different country to try and get to me in time before I die. And I remember actually feeling that, oh, I don't want to die until he gets here. But yet it felt so beautiful to die. It was
Yeah.
just so incredible. Then I started to become aware of more and more. I was aware that a doctor came in and was taking fluid out of my lungs. Another one, a nurse, was trying to put needles through my veins, and he was having trouble doing that. He couldn't find a vein that was big enough to actually insert a needle through. They were all retracted. And I could hear them having these conversations. Oh, her veins are retracted. It's too late. She's already gone. Basically, they were all talking as if I was dead already. I even heard a doctor say something like, should we put a port in her, a port which allows them, where you just make one thing where you can put in anything, fluids or draw blood, so they're not poking everywhere. Like, should we just put a port in her? And then I hear another doctor saying, there's no point. She's not going to be here long enough anyway. These are her final hours. There's no point even putting the
And
port.
are you just getting frustrated? Like, I want to tell everybody I'm here. I can.
So my family, who are so distraught, I wanted them to know that I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm really okay. But I couldn't communicate with them because I had no vocal cords. I wasn't seeing them with my physical eyes. I was seeing beyond the room, but I couldn't communicate with them. And then I started to become aware of more. That was beings, like lovely spiritual beings that were there to greet me and to help me through this process.
And you mentioned when this happened to you, that when we're here, it's almost like we're in this, I love this analogy that you always say in your talks, but when we're here, it's like we're in this dark warehouse.
Yes.
That's dark. And you have a flashlight on. It's kind of like you just see what you want to see. Correct?
Yes, with one
But
flashlight.
You
Yes.
said when you're in that state, it's like somebody turned on the light to the entire
Yes.
warehouse, and you could see every perspective.
Yes.
And then also tell us about the tapestry room.
Okay, so with the warehouse, what I felt was, so it's an analogy I use because it's so hard to describe what I felt and saw and heard on that side. So it felt as though being in physical life is like navigating with a little flashlight in the dark, and all you can see is what your flashlight is shining on. But the near-death experience is like someone flicks on the light and you are just amazed by how huge the warehouse is and how much you can see. There's all these shelves with different things and products and music and art and toys and clothes, like just literally everything, beautiful things and maybe some not so beautiful things. And you realize that when you are navigating life with one flashlight, that when you could only see what that flashlight is shining on and everything else is dark, you believe that that's all there is to life. But in actuality, that isn't all there is. There's so much more. But what you're seeing is just where your awareness is focused on. And that's when I realized, wow, I spent years with my awareness just focused on cancer and illness and people pleasing. But there's so much more. I just had to shift my focus. But of course, you don't know because your marinade keeps you focused on what they believe is important. And so you focus on what you believe is important for your marinade, for your community, where you grew up. So it was really an eye-opener being in that warehouse.
So is it like a spice of life's marinade is like, be careful what your marinade is because your marinade can be really toxic. It could have, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
I
so-
mean, the environment
Your
you're in.
marinade could be your friends, your job, your food, your husband. Just kidding.
It could literally be anything. And it doesn't
No,
mean
sorry.
that they're toxic for everyone,
Right.
but it could be toxic for
you.
you. So what does it mean if something is toxic? It doesn't mean that person is dangerous or negative. It just means that you are unable to be who you are in that environment.
Right.
It's really about being your authentic self.
So would you shift yourself or do you change your environment for
Ye-
people in that
Yeah, because
situation?
I think if your marinade, if you're it's yours, right? So then I also want to protect other people from harm. I could
Yes.
be bad for somebody else's marinade. That's the way I'm thinking of it too.
It is possible, yes, that we're not good for someone else's marinade. However, if we just honor that everybody
Is responsible for their
is,
own.
yes,
Yeah.
everybody's responsible for who they are. Everyone has a right to be who they are. You know, I speak a lot about love and what is love really. All love asks for is love in return. And that's all you have to do is just love people for who they are. That's it, nothing more. You don't have to try and change people. And if they're not a match, it's fine, you move on. But the idea is about bringing out the best in people, or bringing out in people, or allowing people to be who they really are.
Their authentic
Their
self.
authentic self. And it
Yeah.
almost felt like with all of us, this is what I realized in the other realm, which is what allowed me to heal at that time. It almost felt like I realized that there's two me's. There's the me that has been shaped in the physical world, and then there's the soul, which is the real me that had been wanting to express who it is all these years and had never been allowed to express itself in that marinade that this physical self was in.
And that's what got you sick. So it was almost like, and you said cancer saved my life, right?
Yes.
Because it's that message. So you walk into this room, which by the way, I think you had just said, I saw this tapestry, but then I have read a lot of NDEs and people talk about this tapestry. And I want people to know, because I think the biggest illusion, and you speak a lot about this, is we all think we're separate. It's such
Yes.
an illusion, but everything you do affects the entire world. And
Yes.
it's just gotten us into so many wars and religion and all this divide when really we're all connected, right? So you see this beautiful woven tapestry and each one of us are a thread. So tell me what you saw.
Yes. So if you imagine a huge tapestry, a beautiful tapestry that is from floor to ceiling in a huge room with a beautiful picture of anything you want it to be. Like it could be rainbows and trees and mountains and meadows and lakes. And it's and with birds and butterflies, and it's a beautiful, colorful picture. But as you have to stand really far back to see the whole tapestry because it's so big. But as you get closer and closer, you start to see the texture of the tapestry. And then you see that it's been woven by these beautiful silk threads. So you can actually see every individual silk thread. Now imagine if every thread is an individual person, their life. And so you can see where every thread has been woven through this tapestry to make this beautiful tapestry. If you took any threads out, it would alter the whole tapestry. And so imagine if you find the thread that's you and you follow it. And what I could see was where I had touched other people and where they'd gone on to touch other people. But I could see where I still had yet to go and yet to touch other people. But one of the things I noticed about my past, as I was saying, is that I expected to get judged for everything I had done, like including running away from the marriage. And I could see that looking at this tapestry, though, what I hadn't noticed before is how that had impacted other people. It had actually helped other young women and inspired them, like you said. The other thing is that even the people who were directly impacted, it actually helped them to grow and treat, like, say, a future fiance or woman better.
Wow, that's
So,
amazing. And you said, I even understood why I got bullied in the second grade.
yes.
Why? Why do you think that? What was it that you understood about that in the
So
thread?
I understood, so that it all led to me understanding who I am as a person, because I was someone who was more likely to get bullied than to bully another. So the bully in the second grade was someone who was bullied by their own parents or mistreated by their family.
Billy.
Billy, yes. And you remember. And so you understand that everybody is doing what they're doing from the limitations of their life. The other piece that occurred with me is, you know how most near-death experiencers, they talk about how in their life review, for me it was the tapestry, but in their life review, they get to feel what everybody is feeling. And so they feel where they hurt other people. And so they can feel other people's pain, and they come back being more compassionate. With me, what happened, and this is where it's so different, was the opposite. When I was in that state where I could feel what everybody was feeling, I understood why everybody who'd hurt me had hurt me. But what I saw is not where I had hurt other people. What I saw is where all the people had hurt me
And why they did
and
it.
why they did it. And then I understood why I had ended up being so downtrodden and such a people pleaser. And with the cancer, it was accumulation of all the hurt I had endured. It was where, and I'm going to say it was where even I allowed people to take advantage of me. And I say I allowed, I'm not blaming the victim. If you're someone who's been hurt and downtrodden, I would never blame the victim. But what I want people to know is when you become an adult, you can take responsibility for your life. And so this was a call to me that if you value yourself more, if you learn to love yourself more, if you know that who you truly are, your soul is here to express itself, you won't let people do this to you. So for me, it wasn't a case of, oh, this is what you've done to other people, now you've got to be more compassionate. No, it was the other way around. This is what all these people did to you because you are so sensitive and compassionate and you don't fight back and you let people walk all over you. No, you have to love yourself. You have to stand up for yourself.
And Anita has a tank top that literally says I own, and it says, love yourself like your life depends on it,
Yes.
because it does.
It
Hashtag
does.
merch.
And that really is, because it's so true. You know, we lived in a society before where it was like self-love was almost selfish.
Yes.
But now it's the opposite. If you don't love yourself, you're now taking away who you're supposed to be in this tapestry. And that's the selfish thing, because we're all here to play a role in this beautiful tapestry. If you don't love yourself and you make yourself small and you listen to everybody else, now all of a sudden, well, you're messing up the tapestry, because you are supposed to be this perfect. You are perfect the way you're perfectly imperfect. And now you're depriving this tapestry of what you were supposed to.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
So now you see this tapestry, all of a sudden you see your father. Walk us through that, because that was a big one.
So my dad was there, and of course we don't have physical bodies, but it's like our essences know each other. And then you kind of see the image of who he was in life, but you know that's not who he is here. But you know, oh, this is my dad. And from him, I expected judgment. But all I got from him was unconditional love. And he wanted me to know that he loved me, and he always has, but he didn't know how to show it to me. And his marinade, or his conditioning, his cultural conditioning, was that you take care of a daughter in this way. You're strict with her so that her reputation doesn't get tarnished.
It's the best thing for her.
Yes.
Right.
It's
He
the
was
best.
all
doing
he
the best
knew.
thing to
Yeah.
protect
all he
her
knew.
so that she would go on to be successful in her life.
And to be someone else's wife, to find the best possible man for her who can then take over. That's
It's like
why
you come play a role in a
That
script.
was the definition of
Yes.
success, was that
yes.
he has to do what he should.
Yeah.
is
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. And so I realized, just as much as I felt I was a victim of my culture, he was a victim of the same culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I realized that when we cross over, we don't take our gender, our religion, our race, our culture, or our beliefs with us. And we are just pure consciousness, pure
And yet,
love.
so much pain is because of all of that, especially religion. I'm for religion. You know, I think it helps people connect to God, but there's so much divisiveness because of it. And it's
Yes.
not, when you cross over, that doesn't matter,
And you
So
said
None
you
of it
said something
matters.
about I'm totally going to butcher this. I already know, but you're going to tell us right now. When you were talking about your mom talking about God, and you said everything is just a path. It doesn't mean a specific God. Remember
Yes.
that part?
Yes. That
Based
was
on
that was my mom. So I had been confused as a child because I went to Catholic school, but we lived in a predominantly Chinese city where most of the people were Buddhists or Taoists or even atheists. You know, Chinese people don't necessarily believe in a god, and yet the Buddhists, the Taoists, they all went to their own temples. The British kids went to church, and my parents took me to temple. And so when the nun at the Catholic school said that I have to get baptized, I have to be a Catholic if I want to go to heaven. And I said, no, but I'm a Hindu. And so I was made to feel that there was something wrong, that I won't get to heaven.
yeah.
So when I told my parents that, oh, am I going to go to hell when I die? And my mom said, no, don't worry about that. We go to the temple, they go to the church, and then, your Chinese friends go to their temples. And I said, but they're saying that theirs is the one and only true path, the only true religion. And that's when my mom said, that's okay. For them, it is the one true one. And but every religion is just a path to God. Every religion is a path. You can choose whichever path you want, but all of it is just a path to God.
And speak to us about that, because you said God, we all think, or a lot of religions will paint that he's this figure in the sky, and you had a big realization of what God was when you were in that realm.
Yes, God is not some figure in the sky. God is not some person. We give God very human traits. It's not some person judging you. And really, what God is pure consciousness. It's just pure love. And it is all of our consciousness together. In other words, you are an expression of God. You are an expression of God. We all have God expressing him or herself or itself through our eyes. It's like we're all facets of God. So when I was in that realm, I understood that it's like we are individual souls, but we are souls that are all connected as one consciousness to make God. God is one consciousness. This is why we say God is all knowing, because God is the collective of everybody's consciousness, of every life you've ever lived. So God, or consciousness as a whole, is all knowing. And when you meditate or pray or when you connect, you have access to the all. I call it the infinite net. We can have access to other lives. That's why when you do past life regression, sometimes you have access to souls and lives that it may not even be your own, because we're all connected. And yet we're individual. And I think the best analogy I can come up with to explain that is if you think of something like those mirror balls, those disco balls with the mirror tiles. Imagine if each mirror tile was a soul. And so you've got the individual tiles, but it's still all part of one mirror ball.
Yeah.
And these souls, they don't compete with each other. They don't kill each other and destroy each other the way we do as individuals. And all we are as physical individuals, each one of us, is just an expression of each one of those tiles.
And you realize when you came back, we all live upside down, back to front.
Yes.
We're just living wrong. We're not creating that heaven on earth. What do you think the 2 or 3 biggest things that we're doing wrong or not seeing to make our lives
Oh,
just
gosh.
easier? I know there's
So
a lot.
there's a
but
lot. The biggest one is seeing ourselves as separate. That is the dumbest thing that we can possibly do, is to see ourselves as separate beings instead of realizing that at our soul level, we are all connected. And when we help ourselves and help each other, we're helping uplift the whole planet. And so, again, another analogy I use for that is if you imagine that the fingers of your hand, imagine if each finger didn't realize they were connected to a palm, and each finger actually believed that they were completely separate from the other fingers. So now imagine if they were jealous and competitive with each other. Imagine if they decided to have wars with each other and destroy each other. And then when they die, they realize, oh my gosh, we were all part of one hand, one
Right.
organism. And all I was doing was destroying the whole. And this is what we do consistently. Wars make no sense from the other side. When you look from
Like
the
fighting
other side,
against ourselves.
we're fighting against ourselves. We're fighting against consciousness itself.
So stupid.
It's
So
so
true.
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
The thing about the Billy reminded me of elementary school when my Billy was named John, and realizing in junior high school that John was from an abused family, and he was the real pit bull of the grounds of like during recess. So I think that whenever I realized that this kid is also a victim and a product of where he was, his home. So that whenever you are in a position where you're just trying to have more compassion for people, like we say, hurt people.
yes,
It's like that was what that was that
yes.
you talked about.
That's 100%. That's what I realized about Billy and even anyone else that had hurt me in my life. Because there were people that I didn't write about because it was too painful who had hurt me even more than Billy had.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now you're in this. How do you get back in your body? What happens? What are you shown? What's your dad saying? How do we have Anita sitting in this chair right now?
So then what happened? So basically, I then started to really, I reached a point where I was given a choice as to whether to come back or not. And no part of me wanted to come back because I had been suffering, my family had been suffering. But my dad said to me that you need to go back because it's not your time yet. But I was questioning it, as far as you can question it from a soul's perspective, that why would I want to go back into a sick body? But the next thing, it was like every time you have a question, the clarity just comes to you.
Like telepathically.
Like telepathically, you just get this download. There's this clarity like, I started to understand more clearly. Of course, now I understand why I got the cancer. It's because I never expressed who my soul came here to be. And I had been repressed my whole life. And so this was my soul trying to express itself. And I understood how every thought and decision and choice I had made throughout my life had been made from a place of fear, whether it was fear of disapproval, fear of getting cancer. They were all made from a place of fear and not from a place of love, a love for Anita or Anita being Anita. Those choices were never made from that place of, I want to stand up for myself. I want to do this. Never from that perspective, but all from a place of fear of making myself. And it was always making myself small. And I understood that now that and I also understood that I was much more powerful than I'd ever been led to believe. But not just me, we all are. But depending on our marinades, our communities, our culture, our upbringing, we don't realize it. So either we make ourselves small or we make other people small by bullying them so that we can feel big. But when you realize how powerful you really are and what you can actually create and what you are here to do as a soul, then you realize that you don't need to fight other people or compete with other people. So basically, I realized how powerful we are and what I had come here to do. And I understood that now I knew this truth, that if I chose to come back in my body would heal. And my dad also wanted me to know that Danny's and my purpose was linked. And if I don't go back, he wouldn't be able to complete his purpose either.
Aw.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So-
love
He's very
that.
stoic over there in the corner. We're talking about you.
He's heard this a million times.
Okay, he's bored.
Yeah.
No way.
So, okay. So you knew that, hey, when I come back, I'm miraculously going to heal.
Yes. And so I even was clear that I was going to heal very quickly. And my dad wanted me to know that all I needed to do was go back and live my life fearlessly. But here's the other interesting thing, was I then had these flashes of my future.
Wow.
Because I was told that my purpose wasn't complete, but I didn't know what my purpose was. So I get these flashes of my future where I actually saw myself on stage speaking to thousands of people, but I had no clue what I was going to be speaking to them about. But not only that, here was me, this Indian girl in Hong Kong, grown up as a people pleaser. I was someone who was quite shy and reticent, and someone who was introverted and who was so used to making myself small. What was I going to be, how was I going to be standing on stage in front of 3,000 people? Like, what could I possibly be talking to them about? That was so far removed from my reality. And so it was like I could barely believe it, that was in my future. And I had no clue how to get there. And that was when my dad said, just go back and live your life fearlessly. That's all. That's all I had to do. You don't have to figure it out.
Wow.
And so during my lifetime, my dad was the one who instilled fear in me. And in death, he's the one that set me free from the fear.
Wow. Chills. Full circle. I love that moment. I love that. And you say today, like, your relationship there was so much more beautiful and strong than it
Yes.
is, like, with his essence, which I wish people would understand at home. When you do lose a loved one, you're not really losing them. You're losing them in the physical form. But if you can learn to have a relationship with their consciousness, it's so much even more beautiful because they can hear every thought. It's even easier. You don't have to call. You don't have to just think about them, and they hear you, right?
Yes, yes. And I feel his guidance a lot. And that was the first time, like being in spirit was the first time I truly felt his love. And
Wow.
and yeah, and
It's unbelievable. So now you make the decision, okay, I'm going to go back, right? You got
Yes.
to the point where you had to make a choice.
Yes. And then my physical eyes start to open on my body.
Wow.
As soon as I made the choice, my physical eyes start to open. But of course, I was still really groggy. And I saw my family around me. And my brother had arrived. I had seen him on the plane trying to get to me. So there was my brother and Danny, of course. And Danny he saw me open my eyes and he was looking really elated. And my mom. And then they called a doctor and they start talking to me. And I kept saying, Dad's here, Dad's here. And they didn't know what to make of what I was saying. And I just kept saying, he said, it's not my time. I'm not going to die. I'm going to be fine. And I started to say, we can pull out all the tubes. And they were like, no, don't touch anything. And they called the doctor. And I started to say that, that my dad is here. He says it's not my time. So the doctor just said to my family that, oh, she's just delirious, from the drugs.
But didn't you also know his name? And you had
I
never
did.
met him. She said Dr. Chang, right?
That's
like, hello,
right.
Dr. Chang. And
He was like, how do you know my name? And I said, aren't you the doctor that came in and took the fluid out of my lungs this morning? And he said, but you were in a coma. You couldn't possibly have seen me do that. And he was the doctor that only started treating me after I'd gone into the coma. I'd never seen him before that.
Wow.
So he was really shocked. But then he just said to my family that, it happens sometimes that they can go in and out of consciousness, but she's still critical. Don't let her pull any of the tubes out. She's still very, very critical. And he basically told my family, don't get your hopes up. But after he left the room, that's when I started to say to Danny, that isn't he the doctor that said I won't even make it through the night? Now, it had been 30 hours I'd been in the coma, and I said, isn't he the doctor that said I wouldn't even make it through the night? And Danny said, How could you possibly have heard that? That wasn't even in this room. It was outside, down the corridor at the nurses' station. You couldn't possibly have heard that. And I said, no, I saw him telling you. And so that's when they started to realize something had happened.
And then within 4 days, 70% of the tumors are now shrunk. So what
Yes.
are people just completely...
They were blown away. They couldn't explain it. So it was just melting away. Like even without using any scans or anything, the doctors were coming in and they were just looking and feeling it because these tumors were sticking out and even under my arms. And so they were so surprised. And even just by an x-ray without a proper scan, they were able to see that the tumors had shrunk by 70%.
And
then
Anita was getting rowdy, wanting to play dancing queen and eat chocolate. So they had to move her out of the ICU.
Yeah, they actually said that you're getting very noisy and rowdy because I was sitting up and I was euphoric and I wanted to share with everyone who would listen what I experienced. And I just wanted to listen to my music, and I happened to be dancing queen. So they moved me out of the intensive care unit because, there's only a curtain separating you between every patient. And they said, it's we don't understand what's happening. And I had a food tube as well. And I said, look, I'm ready to eat. I promise you I'm going to eat food. Please take out the tube. It's the most uncomfortable thing. And I had to really convince them. And they took out the tube and they said, if you do not eat your meals, we're going to put it right back in. And I said, you've got a deal. But also, within 4 days, they were able to remove the tube that was giving me oxygen as well.
Walking miracle.
That's
Walking
incredible.
miracle. That's unbelievable.
And then you said also that they couldn't measure it in your blood or something, the lymph.
Yeah, in the lymph. So in 3 weeks, they were waiting for me to get stronger physically because my body was still really weak. And so they wanted to do the lymph node biopsy, and they also wanted to do a bone marrow biopsy. For both of these, I needed to be a bit stronger. So they were waiting 3 weeks. So they said, wait, we're waiting for you to put on another 5 or 8 pounds at least. And so I was, eating, and so my strength was coming back. And when they sent me to the radiologist to mark up a lymph node to biopsy, the radiologist said, wow, I can't even find a lymph node that's even big enough to suggest cancer.
And then you had the naysayers and you had the medical people that could not, obviously explain this scientifically. What was their explanation?
Oh gosh, I had these naysayers say things like, "Oh, maybe you were misdiagnosed." And I was like,
Oh,
I dealt with
just
this
imagine these
yeah,
balls under my armpits.
I know. And 4 years been dealing with 5 different doctors, and you're saying misdiagnosed. And yeah, and all those medical records. That was one. Another one was that yes, you had a spontaneous remission. It's incredible. But whatever. And so when they would ask me, so what do you think happened? And I would tell them about the NDE, and they would say, well, you did have a spontaneous remission and you're lucky to be alive. But all that stuff, that's just the drugs messing with your mind. You didn't die. You didn't touch the other side.
And did you see that book? There's a neurologist that because they always said it's something with the brain, but then he was actually brain dead and still had that experience.
Eben Alexander.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like,
Yes.
no, people just want this physical explanation. And I know that you got well pretty quick.
In
And I know
5
how,
weeks.
in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
know
'cause
how hard it,
the scientists spent so much time
of
that
course.
they need to have it to be like, make all our time make sense.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like, here I am, a miracle to believe.
And I know that
Proof.
assimilating back
Is hard.
is hard, right? And going back into the culture and trying to assimilate after everything you've seen, now all of a sudden you want to tell the world and you want to share all these insights. And now you're kind of going back to your house and back to the culture.
Yeah.
Was that really hard for you?
It was really challenging. So, I was in the hospital for 5 weeks. And while I was in the hospital, I was in this safe cocoon. And it was just my family, and I was sharing with them, and they believed me. And the nurses in hospitals are so lovely. They're so kind, and they take care of you, and they help you have your bath and everything. They're so kind, and I felt so safe and looked after. When I remember getting in the car, driving home and looking out at the city, on the one hand, I'm getting this second chance at life, and everything looked so vibrant and alive and beautiful. But I was also so scared of meeting all the people, the community, my old friends and neighbors and everybody who was going to want to know what happened. Because everybody thought that I would not come out of the hospital.
Right.
They all thought I would die. So the initial reaction from people was there was joy, elation. Oh my God, we thought we'd lost you. And that was very heartwarming. But it was very hard for me to share what I experienced. Very so hard that it became tiring because people would challenge it. And when you try to tell people, I can't live the old way anymore. I'm not that same person. I'm not that people pleaser. And you see, I was always that person who was available for everyone. I was always that shoulder for everybody to cry on. Had also, being that person, I had also attracted a lot of toxic friendships, as you can
You're an
imagine.
empath, yeah.
Yeah, and you
yeah.
don't turn anyone away, see? And
And that's hard. But one of the things that you spoke so beautifully about, and I think this is so important to anyone going through an illness, is healing versus curing.
yes,
I thought that was so powerful because, and I'll let you speak, but healing, you can still heal and pass away,
yes,
and you can get cured and still not have been healed. And that's why a lot of illnesses can come back, correct? Part of the
exactly.
reason.
Exactly right.
What is the difference?
So curing is just handling disease on the physical level, just the physical symptoms. And this is what doctors do. And in a lot of cases, naturopaths as well. It's when you just look at the physical symptoms and you just measure them, and you measure them with scans, and you offer the drugs or even the supplements that will actually just get rid of the symptoms. But you still go back to the life you used to live that caused that illness in the first place. Healing means identifying, why did I get this illness in the first place? What is the lifestyle that caused it? Whatever it is, whether it's my relationships, whether it's my emotional baggage, whether it's my spirit, my soul crying out to be expressed, whether it's a toxic environment, whether it's toxins, the way I eat my food, whatever it is, just about every illness does not happen in a vacuum. You are not a victim of your illnesses. And sometimes people are sensitive when I say this, and I apologize, because I don't want you to feel it's your fault if you are ill. I don't want you to feel blamed if you have cancer. But when you get a disease as an adult, and I'm not talking about children, when you get a disease as an adult, there is always circumstances around which this disease had time to manifest. There's always a history why it has manifested in your body. So healing is actually kind of like reverse engineering it and doing course corrections. And it's never too late to do that.
And it starts, obviously, this is why it happened. I know it's considered a miracle, but it actually makes sense. Like if you start to get sick on the soul level, then it catches up onto your physical body. Well, why can't you reverse it? If you
Yes.
heal the soul, then it can catch up and the physical body will heal, which is probably what happened to you.
Exactly. Because
I have to interject that part of why reading your book was so intense was because it made me realize about changes that I could make for my mom. So the things that you're describing about how you can be in the driver's seat about your health, and if you feel sick, it can be up to us to be the captain of our ship
yes.
and making those changes and recognizing what everything in our environment does to us. And one of the reasons I was so shaken by everything that you talked about is because of the responsibility I felt, which that could be considered a different, topic, but it's not. Because right now, when I think about helping for my mom doing things that we were just talking with Kimberly, I was like, I felt so angry because I wanted to make her drink water more often. I wanted her to eat nutritious foods. And how I think you even mentioned about just nutrition coming to your body, even when absorbing into your body to stay healthy and strong. So, um, I just had to share that as you guys are talking because I thought it's so important. I mean, I also, you guys, everyone who listens to the pod also knows that I worry about my husband abusing his body with
Yes.
like, too much sugar and things. So, and not enough exercise. So, it's so important to remember how much more control we have, like you're describing right now.
And more so just not only the physical, but the emotional. And a
Yes.
big thing that I always tell people that, and like Anita says, because so many of us people please, even sometimes, not always.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I learned from you is when there's a lot of moments where we're put in where we say yes when we really want to say no.
Yes.
And Anita said,
gosh.
even, or you want to help someone, but you don't really want to, you're doing it because I should. Tell them what we should be doing.
Saying no. The
Well,
best.
you were saying like,
Yeah.
you tell us what.
So we need to realize that when you're saying yes out of obligation, it's a very different energy than when you're saying yes because you're enthusiastic and you want to do something. And so even if you are out of obligation, you're going with somebody who you really don't want to go with to do this errand or run something, you may not be aware of it, but that's the energy you're bringing there, and they are actually also absorbing that energy. And I'm not sure if this is what the direction you wanted to go,
but you're saying say no rather than say yes out of obligation, and you're showing up. But even if you have a happy smile, they can feel
they
that.
can feel
rather
it.
just say no and be true to
Yes.
yourself.
And if you reverse it, think about all the people that have said yes to you when you wanted something. Imagine if you found out they were only saying yes out of obligation and not because they wanted to do it. How would you feel? You would feel horrible. So
Yeah.
don't do that to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also have another book besides Dying to Be Me called Sensitive is the New Strong, which I love for sensitive people. So that's another incredible book that really helps empaths, right?
Yes. Yes.
And creating boundaries, because a lot of empaths will attract narcissists and toxic people because they prey on their energy.
Yes.
And you don't want them to get sick. You want them to use that gift to help the
Yes.
world.
Exactly. Because I think empaths are needed in the world
Yeah.
today. They really
Yeah.
are. I think empaths are the people for our future, for the future survival of the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why I wanted to write this book to help them to be stronger.
Yeah.
Because when an empath is strong, then they use their strength to do good in the world.
Yeah. And I just want to let everybody know how much your book has helped so many people. And I'll let Kimberly have a couple words and then we'll wrap it up, because there's still so many questions I would love to ask, but I encourage people to go read Dying to Be Me. It's life-changing. But Kimberly, I had met because I was like, I'm going to start this podcast while her poor mother, was suffering from dying of cancer.
Oh.
And I said to Kimberly in the very first meeting, she was like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I really want to make Anita Moorjani's film. It's like my mission in life, because your messages are so important to this world. And while her mom's dying of cancer. So Kimberly, I'll let you share really quickly how your book really, really changed her life. I wanted her to share on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to be here with you and have you here with us, because you truly have transformed so many lives. And your book, Dying to Be Me, carried me single-handedly through the death of my best friend, my soulmate, my mom. I think it really let me release her with joy, and really took out all fear. What my question for you truly is, for the listeners, which is, what do you say to the person that is experiencing either themselves or a loved one a terminal illness and they are so afraid of those last moments and losing that loved one? How can you provide them with comfort or support based on having been to the other side and now you're back here with us?
So there's a few things I would say. So first of all, I would want the loved one who is dying to know that they don't have to fear death. It's actually beautiful and it's a form of release, and we continue. Our soul goes on. And our deceased loved ones can continue to help us from that side. So they will still be able to continue to help you, your loved ones. Of course, the person still living is going to feel the void and the grief. So the person living needs to know that they just need to heal or work on healing themselves. And so they need to do whatever helps them to heal. They don't have to worry about their deceased loved one, because another thing I notice is that living people who are grieving, it's one to grieve and feel the
Loss.
grief in yourself and feel the loss in yourself, but they're also worried about their loved one. They're worried, did they go to a good place? Do they still love me? Can they still hear me? Do I need to do more?
And sometimes guilt.
Yes, and guilt.
Guilt for living and they're gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your loved one does not want you to suffer. You need to know that. The one thing that will make them happy is if you find your joy again. So even if the person you lost is a spouse or a partner, your loved one will not be upset or jealous if you meet someone else. In fact, you're helping your loved ones. And sometimes when people leave prematurely, it's because they feel it's the best thing they can do for the people around them. Because sometimes people ask me, like, why did you get to come back and my loved one didn't? If we get a choice, we will always make it from the most unconditionally loving place. Because when you're in that spirit form without your body, you are in that space of unconditional love. And if you feel you can do better for your loved ones from the other side, you will choose to cross over to help them from there. Because sometimes people can be so wrapped in a toxic environment that they know coming back would be harder, even for their loved ones. So we always make the most unconditionally loving choice. But again, what to say to someone who is in that state of dying is that they are going to be absolutely fine. They have nothing to fear. If somebody has been diagnosed with terminal cancer, but they're not dying yet, and I would actually have you encourage them to take charge of their own health. And or anyone listening, if you've been diagnosed with something that is terminal, I would like you to know that when a doctor tells you something is terminal, it's only because they don't have in their toolbox the pharmaceuticals or the technology to heal this, but it does not mean you cannot heal, because there is a lot more, like that warehouse, there is a lot more that exists out there that you can do that your flashlight is not focused on. And the way I would encourage people to do it is to know that when a doctor gives you a prognosis, they're giving you a trajectory of your illness based on where it is right now and based on you doing nothing about it. You can decide today that you are going to make some changes, and you can change that trajectory to one of a trajectory of wellness just by making changes. Emotional changes, spiritual changes, physical changes, changes to your diet, changes to your relationship.
So you have so much more power than you realize.
Anita
Yes.
says to say, if you're sick, if you had a clean bill of health today, what would you go do?
Yes.
And obviously, physically, if you can do it, then she says, go do it now.
Yeah,
Like
live-
even when you're sick.
Yes, live your life like a well person.
Yeah.
Stop focusing on the illness. Even if you're going to doctors, hospitals for treatments, don't focus on them.
I remember Wayne Dyer would get up and say, even when he was sick, I am well.
Yes.
And he would say it to the whole audience.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
And you just get on with your
Yeah.
life like a well person.
Now, Anita speaks all over the world, does so many events. Where can people go to get more information?
So my website is anitamoorjani.com, and they can find out a lot more about where I'll be and who I am and my books and everything. I also have an online membership platform called the Anita Moorjani Sanctuary.
Okay,
Well,
beautiful.
yeah.
And she has tons of books. She has a children's book that I personally read with my daughter. She goes, Anita's coming. We have a children's book. So about love and what love is. It's
And
a beautiful book.
I have a second book, which I thought I gave you, Scaredy Caterpillar.
No,
children's book.
I didn't know you
Oh
had
my
another
gosh,
children's
I would
book.
have to send it to you then.
I got to get it. And you have another book, What If This Is Heaven?
Yes. What
on
if
how
this is
to
heaven?
how to live heaven on earth, because she's experienced it. Sensitive is the New Strong.
Yes.
But Dying to Be Me, is the very first book. Life-changing, so I highly recommend it. And we will be having a movie soon. So you guys will
Yes.
see Anita's story on the big screens. That is the goal. And it's going to happen. It's going to be
Yes.
fun. So
It
thank you
is.
so much for coming. There's so many, probably a million more questions, but I could keep you here all day. But
Thank you.
we're so thankful to have had you
For the
Thank
first
you.
time.
for the
Looking
first time.
forward to next time.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
we'll be getting you back. But thank you for coming, and I'm sure we'll have you back.
I would love that. Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank
All
you
right, guys.
so much.
Thanks for joining. See you next time. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this week's episode of Heal to Feel. You can write in and ask your questions on our show's IG page at H2F Pod, and we'll address your questions on next week's episode. If this episode helped you, we would love for you to share it with your friends and family. Share the fun with all those that can benefit from a good laugh or cry with us. Please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we would greatly appreciate you.